What's up, guys? I watched my first gi event in a long time last night, the Jesus Flow Grappling IBJJF Grand Prix. Tezos, I don't know how to pronounce it. I don't know what it does. Nobody does. So I think Flow is heavily getting involved in these gi super fight events this year because they see the gi as quite similar to another sport, the biggest sport in the world, soccer. I think soccer and the gi, a lot of similarities. In soccer, a whole lot of the time is spent with neither guy coming close to scoring, neither of the teams coming close to scoring. And when they do, obviously massive celebration. You see gi jiu-jitsu guys celebrate 2 points like a soccer player would celebrate scoring a goal. The shirts come off, the tears come out. But other similarities, a lot of confusion on the rules, a lot of complaining to the ref, a lot of fake fouls. But again, the major difference between gi jiu-jitsu and soccer is people actually watch soccer. I'm not sure why they do. I'm a straight male myself. I don't see the excitement in that sport. But again, let's recap this gi event because I want you to know that I stayed up way past my 8 p.m. bedtime to watch this event. I watched all of the Flow grappling matches and I wanted to make some observations on what I thought about the event and the athletes involved. Guys, this event, I believe it had 9 matches in total, only 1 submission. So obviously super disappointing. We would want there to be more submissions. That's going to be more exciting for the fans and more exciting for us other athletes watching it too. Again, there doesn't need to be a submission for it to be an exciting match. There's been tons and tons of exciting matches. Like, for example, I used to love watching Leandro Lo. He'd rarely submit his opponent, but it would be a very high-paced, stressful match throughout. He might be in deep submission attempts and fight his way out. It always comes down to the wire. But again, it doesn't have to be a submission for it to be exciting, but yeah, definitely disappointing. Only 1 submission in the match. I'm not sure what Flow Grappling can do or the IBJJF can do to improve the submission rate. And I'm not just talking gi, I'm talking no gi as well. Although I do believe typically there's more submissions in no gi because you're allowed to do more submissions. There's more submissions available to you. So yeah, I don't know what you can do to the rule changes to increase the likelihood of submission, but obviously it's something we'd all like to see. Again, when you get to the higher level, people are more concerned with not losing than winning in dominant fashion. So yeah, I'm not sure. Even submission bonus for cash isn't that great because I personally make way more money off BJJ Fanatics than I do off of show money or sub money. So again, it's very hard to incentivize athletes to take risk in these shows because they know what's at stake with their reputation and their outside of the event earnings. So let's start with the ladies. Nutella Jesus comes back from having a kid with her husband, Hibama. Having a kid returning to sport, I hear is difficult. I personally wouldn't know, but she was able to take out the tournament. She was able to defeat Anna Carolina in the final. Obviously a close match, but yeah, super cool that she's able to come back from having a kid and return to the highest levels of the sport. I think this was her first debut back after having the kid. So yes, super impressive. Take out the 4-lady tournament. So we'll talk about the guy that got the only submission in the entire event, Andy Murasaki. I actually trained with Andy when he was 15 years old. I used to still train in the gi at the time. I cannot remember what year it was, but I still lived in Melbourne, and Murasaki came down to train at Absolute St Kilda, Lachlan Giles gym. That's where I used to teach. So I remember I rolled with him in the gi when he was 15. I can't remember how long. This must have been 6 years ago at least. So I was probably 25, 26. And yeah, I remember I rolled with him. He didn't submit me, but I remember thinking at that time, if I cannot hang with 15-year-old Andy Murasaki, I better hang my gis up. And not just hang them up, but burn them, destroy them. I don't have any gis anymore. I threw my black belt out, everything. But Andy Murasaki, I've been able to follow his career throughout. Still gi guy and no gi guy. Trains at Atos these days. Yeah, super talented. Again, shout out to him for getting the only submission of the whole event. He made it to the final against Jonathan Alves. Jonathan Alves takes a ton of criticism online. A lot of people complain about him being a boring grappler and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, he not always the most exciting matches, but he definitely wins a whole lot more than he loses. I believe the rule change they did for this event which was that if you were to hold the belt or hold the lapel for more than 10 seconds in the 50-50 position, would land you a negative. I believe that might have been directed at some of the criticism to Jonathan because he's so good at winning matches from 50-50. Again, close matches, looks close on the scoreboard, but in the matches I've watched, he seems to be in control of it despite it being so close. So I believe that rule change might have been directed at him. I'm not sure if they publicly stated that, but that rule change was in effect. Andy and Jonathan did end up in 50-50 regardless. They both did get penalized in that position. And yeah, Jonathan was able to get the nod. I believe he won the referee's decision in that match. But yeah, I mean, still, it was an interesting four-man tournament for the lighter guys. It's cool to see what they're doing in the gi. Hard for me to understand being away from it for so long these days. When I was training heavily in the gi, mostly berimbolo action, I saw a bit of the lapel action. But yeah, the lapel 50-50, I'm glad they do penalize that because it is hard to watch, to say the least. Another cool match was Francisco Lo versus Ronaldo Jr. I know Ronaldo because I competed against him in no-gi. I think he hasn't done a lot of no-gi prior to that or since then, but super exciting gi guy, very athletic, explosive, jumps around a lot. He was able to get the nod, I think 5 advantages to 2. That seems like a big stretch on the scoreboard, but watching it, it was pretty close until the very end. His opponent, Francisco Lo, I didn't know about this guy until he hit some wild triangle on a former teammate of mine, Oliver Tarza, where he like interlocked fingers, dove a triangle while Tarza was playing seated and got the finish. Tarza's tough to submit. You guys see him compete a lot. He does take some losses, but you very rarely see him get finished. Very rare to see him get finished. He's tough. So to see Francisco take him out like that, that's when I started paying attention to this guy. Francisco is predominantly a gi guy, but he is making waves in no-gi. I wouldn't be surprised to see him do very well in no-gi, considering his victories over high-caliber opponents like Tarza. Not just victories, but submissions. Francisco actually came in here the day before the event, so not yesterday, but the day before. He's probably coming in to get a light sweat going. Ends up going to war with Nicky Rod. He rode with Ethan as well. I think he toned it down a bit then, had some easier rounds. But I remember I was shocked at the time to see him fighting Nicky Rod to the death in no-gi the day before his competition. I personally would never fight Nicky Rod to the death because it's going to get me injured. But yeah, back to the Francisco match versus Ronaldo Jr. Pretty close right until the end. I think maybe Francisco was down by an advantage and knew we had to push the pace because Ronaldo would ride it out. And in pushing the pace, Ronaldo was able to extend that lead. Sometimes when you're down, you have to take these risks, and those risks are either going to pay off or they're going to cost you. And generally speaking, when the onus is on you to try to win the match and make something out of nothing, the advantage goes to the other guy. So being up early is very important. But again, props to Francisco for pushing the pace at the end, trying to bring this match back, even though it did cost him. But I think probably one of the most exciting matches of the night, in my opinion. And then finally, Tainan versus Izaki. Izaki, I believe he won the previous match. So this one was interesting because it was a 30-minute match. So obviously they're trying to follow the no-gi style events Flow Grappling produces. So again, a lot of the WNOs, you'll see 30-minute headlining matches or co-main events, title matches, right? So obviously following that and trying to put it to the gi. I personally don't think longer matches are always better. I think when you extend the match length, people start to pace themselves. They don't shoot their shot as often. In this match, Tainan was able to sweep a couple times. He was able to pass half guard, very strong passing pressure from half guard and secure side control, in which Izaki was ultimately able to retain his guard. I think the match point difference was like 19-2. They were penalizing Tainan. I didn't think he was necessarily being boring or anything that warranted too many stalling penalties. But again, sometimes you have to do it. It's a professional paid event. We want to see action. We want to see risk. Izaki never really turtled to try to recover guard or prevent the passes, which is something that might ultimately lead to submission against a guy like Tainan who's so good from the back. But again, yeah, 30-minute match. Did it need to be 30 minutes? Probably not. But obviously Flow, IBJJF experimenting with the rules to try to make this a more exciting event. But yeah, dominant victory by Tainan. Hard to dig yourself out of such a point deficit, especially when you end up on bottom, Izaki being primarily a top player. But yeah, all in all, It was exciting. I mean, I'm not going to talk too much shit because we've had no time limit matches in Nogi. We've had boring ass 30-minute matches in Nogi. So it's like, it's hard for me as a Nogi guy to throw too much shade at the gi. The gi's definitely not as popular. Again, it might never be. It doesn't have to be. It's a different audience. The amount of crossover of people that watch both, I think, is becoming less and less. People are really staying in their lane these days. I will tune in to watch the occasional gi match. Obviously, I watched World's Finals and stuff to see what's going on. But again, yeah, I don't think it has the glamour, the appeal as it once did. And you guys tell me in the comments. I'm biased because I used to be more excited about the gi when I trained in the gi. But to me, it seems like the legends of the past far outweigh sort of some of today's stars in the sport. You know, obviously guys like Leandro Lo, Roger Gracie, Marcelo Garcia, Andre Galvao, all those world's champions from previous age seem a lot bigger stars than kind of what we have today. Obviously, you got guys like Tainan and stuff who a lot of people unquestionably say is the best right now. But yeah, you guys tell me in the comments what you think, if you think I'm being biased because I don't train in the gi anymore. Guys, please like and subscribe. I lost my Friday night to a gi grappling event, and that's the type of commitment I'm giving to you guys.